Hello. As I'm sure you can tell, I'm not Diego Sanchez. My name is Zeb Lowe. I'm the director of the content studio here at HousingWire, and I'll be filling in for him in today's episode with Andrew Bao, the Chief Operations Officer at Class Valuation, who I'm very excited to speak with. We've got a ton of ground to cover, and I've got a ton of questions. I doubt I'll be able to get to all of them, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, Andrew, so let's start off with a bit of your background. Can you tell me, where you're from, how you got into the industry, what ultimately led you to Class Valuation?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the UK, just outside of London, and I moved to the United States in 1992 and was introduced to an appraiser at that time, which I actually didn't know anything about, much like so many other people. That wasn't the plan. But spent some time with this appraiser and then basically went on my journey that has now lasted 32 years, which is quite incredible for me to hear myself say out loud. I've had a number of different roles at a number of really fabulous organizations. I've been privileged to work with some tremendously talented people along the way. Most of my career actually has been spent working in the lending arena. I was with First Federal Bank, ING Direct, and most recently Chase, before transitioning over into the AMC space. So I arrived at Class through an acquisition and have held my current role for the past 4 months. I'm the COO currently, still an appraiser. I'm a certified appraiser. What makes me really proud is that each of my directs that currently work for me within operations are all appraisers. 3 extraordinary women that work for me who are, I think, the industry's best. So I'm again very lucky to have great people around me.
That's very interesting. I think that actually is going to serve kind of as a cool, backdrop to this conversation, because there are not that many people in not just your industry, just in the housing industry at large, that at your level have not only done the job at the ground level, but have still, kept their certifications or their qualifications. So I know for a fact that gives you a very unique perspective.
It helps us to be relatable, and I think it helps us to understand the frustrations of industry participants, having lived it ourselves. We're all very passionate about the industry, and we're certainly advocates, but we're equally critical, let's say, when things aren't being done appropriately.
Was there anything in particular that attracted you to appraisals and valuations? I mean, most people that I know, like on my side of the fence, everybody kind of that I know just happens to fall into the industry.
Yeah, no, I think I'm very much the same. That was never really the plan. I've certainly enjoyed my career to this point, but that wasn't the plan. I don't know that there ever was one. But I did have some experience in real estate in England prior to being in the United States. So I felt, well, I'll go see what this appraisal business is all about. And I've been here ever since. So, it's been quite an interesting journey.
Okay. And so you're at Class Valuation now, which is the largest AMC in the country, managing the largest panel of appraisals. So how does that scale impact the quality and the speed of appraisals? And on top of that, how do you maintain consistency across such a large network?
Yeah, certainly as one of the biggest, if not the biggest, we have, a significant panel of partners that we want to work with. I see it actually as a distinct advantage for us. As a result of our scale, we're able to interact with appraisers on a regular basis, the same appraisers on a regular basis. As a result of that, we have, the continuity of service that we try to build through those partnerships. And I think that really helps us to differentiate ourselves and provide that consistency that we're looking for.
Let's see. Well, so I know that there's a common misconception that AMCs always choose the lowest paid appraisers.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? Can you share how Class Valuation's algorithm works in assigning appraisers and what criteria are prioritized?
Certainly. Again, as I mentioned, I'm still a certified appraiser. I'm very much an appraiser advocate. I'm very passionate about the business. I'm equally critical of those appraisers that don't provide great service. And that really is the ultimate goal for us. in picking the lowest fee in any given market, frankly, there's no advantage in doing that long term. All you're frankly doing is shifting expense further down the process as a result of poor quality or poor service or whatever the case may be. We're in the business obviously to make money like everybody else. It's a balancing act between finding the right competitive fee, but our primary drivers are around quality, turn time, percentage on time, the key service level expectations that you would expect.
Let me go back to that misconception about choosing, or that AMCs choose the lowest paid appraisers. Is that a common misconception, or is there some truth to it, and just Class Valuation does things differently? I mean, where does that misconception come from?
As with appraisers, the same with AMCs. There are some bad actors in the industry, in every area of the mortgage industry, clearly. I can't speak to other AMCs, but know that in my experience, it's a fool's errand simply picking the cheapest appraiser. Again, those downstream costs that you incur as a result of those service failures really just negate any benefit to going to the lowest appraiser in any given market. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the industry, because I'm sure it does, but that is absolutely not our approach, and there's no benefit to doing it.
Sure. I know that you guys have a scorecard system that you use to evaluate the performance of your appraisers. Can you walk me through that? What goes into it? How does it influence the selection process?
Yeah, again, you're going to hear me say the word partnership over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm of the opinion that the assignment decision that we make every single day, many, many, many times a day, is the absolute critical step in the process. By selecting the right appraiser, we're going to set in motion, hopefully, a process that ends up being, successful. In order for us to provide good feedback to our appraisers, over a certain minimum threshold, and I believe it's 5 a month, we will send you a monthly scorecard where you can compare your performance to your peer group within your market. So you can see how your turn time is faring against your peers. You can see what you're
giving appraisers comps.
No. Well, no, not comparable sales. We're comparing them to their peers. But no, don't say that we're giving them comps. No, but so you can see on our scorecard what your revision rate is compared to your peer group, what your quality is compared to your peer group, and how you've performed in terms of your standard SLAs. So if you're calling your contact at Class and saying, how do I get more business? Well, you can see on your scorecard how you get more business. You need to compete, more competitively in order to do that.
Do you see, what have the results been from that? Or have you seen much improvement from appraisers throughout that scorecard, like evaluation performance?
Yeah, look, I think engagement on the part of the appraiser is going to vary, right? We encourage appraisers to engage with us. We want to have, a good collaborative partnership with appraisers. This shouldn't be an adversarial relationship, which unfortunately sometimes you read in the blogs that seems to be the case. That certainly isn't what we want to do. I think the majority of appraisers appreciate the fact that we're sharing some degree of transparency around not only what their revision rate is, but why the revisions actually happened. We'll actually give you the detail around what areas of your report resulted in a revision request coming back to you, to encourage them to actually improve upon what they're doing, or to go and ask additional questions of whoever they need to see how they can avoid those revisions in the future. So it's a proactive, constructive means for us to communicate with our partners.
How long has this been going on?
This has been going on. This predates me, so I couldn't put a date on it. And again, okay. I've only been here for 4 months, but I very much like what Class have had in place, and will continue to refine it based on feedback and other factors.
Yeah, I'm curious to know. So, I don't know, the perception, and I from my experience with appraisers, there's a bit of truth in this, is that being an appraiser is very much an independent venture, and yep. And so independent-minded folk, let's say, they're the attraction to Class Valuation through this partnership, as you're talking about. Have you found that that brings a specific type, or that is attracting a unique type of appraiser to work with you?
I don't know that we've noticed that there's any particular segment within the appraisal industry that is drawn to working with us. Look, there are appraisers that don't work with AMCs, and they have other outlets for business, which is fabulous. And there are those that do. Again, the benefit of working with us, and we see this through one of our segmented groups, which we refer to as our elite panel, where we're giving people at least on average one order a day. So that's a decent amount of business. That we see that their performance, both in terms of quality and turn time, is materially better than the main panel. And again, you're seeing the benefit of that continuity, of getting to understand each other a little bit, having that interaction that is driving better service. So I think those people that appreciate a consistent, steady amount of work from the same source are certainly drawn to us as a result of us having the volume.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that y'all have introduced these specialty panels like construction or new construction, green energy, private wealth, I believe. So what prompted the creation of those groups, and what advantages would you say they bring to clients and the industry?
Yeah, again, as we look at appraisers and the different assignments that can be, provided, there's a broad array of skill sets that are required as an appraiser. It's not just a one size fits all approach. You mentioned new construction, which is something we're very much focused on at the moment, and that is very much a specialty. There, you need to know what you're doing in order to fulfill those types of assignments accurately and in a timely manner. So, what we've done recently is really revisit being able to differentiate those individuals on our panel that have those skills that can be measured through education. They've taken the right courses, they've passed the right tests, they've gone through an onboarding process and a vetting process that clearly demonstrates they know what they're doing. The benefit to the appraiser is we're giving them work that they are clearly good at. We're giving them work that they, I would assume, enjoy doing and would like more of, and that provides them an opportunity. It also gives them an opportunity to fulfill assignments in an environment where you're not seeing waivers and you're not seeing bifurcated products or lower scope products being leveraged. And I think that's obviously to the benefit of the appraiser. When it comes to the consumer and our lending clients, clearly their focus is all about quality and service. And they want to know that we're engaging people that know what they're doing. There are significant relationships involved in these building transactions, and it's of critical importance that we assign to the right individual. And that's what we're obviously able to do through going through this differentiator. Again, new construction is a focus right now. We're obviously doing the same thing with high-end complex homes, where there's a completely different mindset that needs to be engaged as an appraiser, the high degree of discretion that needs to be employed when dealing with high net worth customers and that type of property. It simply isn't the same. And there's a multitude of other types of specialties within the industry. And again, as we go through these changes, it's, I think, of paramount importance for appraisers in order to remain relevant, to continue to get the education they need in order to be able to fulfill these types of services. What you're seeing more and more of is the cookie cutter, as we refer to them as, transactions are being swept into the waiver environment or the digital inspection type of process as a result of their conformity. And so appraisers, I think, again, in order to remain relevant, should seek out opportunities. We offer discounts with two of the largest education providers in the country, and again, in enabling and encouraging appraisers to get educated.
This is this is going to be an anecdotal question and answer for you, but what would you say, or do you have any idea of because whenever you and I had spoke previously a bit about the education of the courses and the specialty panels and things, I think you had described it as, what did you describe it as? Almost like a Boy Scout like badge system.
Yeah.
And so what would you say the average appraiser, how many badges would you say they have, generally speaking? Is it the case that, most of the appraisers try to go just one specialty, or do they tend to see them venture out to maybe two or three?
Yeah, I think again, there's been such significant change in our industry in the past 3 or 4 years. having come through a period of almost a generation of no real change. Prior to 4 or 5 years ago, everything was done on pretty much the same form. It was almost exclusively appraiser utilization. And again, to some extent, appraisers got, not as a result of the market, but just because of the norm, somewhat complacent in some of the assignments that they were fulfilling. They didn't have to really branch out and look at these types of specialties. That clearly has changed. And what we've seen in the last few years is a lot more appraisers reaching out and looking at where their skill sets are going to be leveraged and utilized in the long term. It's difficult for me to say, what the average number of specialties are, but we're certainly seeing, and as we speak to our partners at McKissick and elsewhere, the types of courses that are encouraging appraisers to become a little more specialized.
So you mentioned McKissick, and I believe you've also partnered with Appraiser elearning to offer these discounted training courses. Can you share, and you've talked about this just a little bit, can you share a little bit more about those partnerships and the skills that those appraisers gain when to join those specialty panels?
Well, certainly. And again, we have a two-way conversation with the folks at both of those organizations, providing feedback about some of the things that we're going to be looking for in the future. We're not directly involved in course development, but we certainly like to feel that we can influence that based upon feedback that we get from our client base and where we see the market going and the needs of the market. But again, what we see with appraisers that take the time to go over and above just simply getting their, continuing education requirements and how do I get that done as quickly as possible and as painlessly as possible, that's just simply not the right approach. Those that are actually investing a little bit of time in themselves to get those courses are being prioritized when it comes to assignments, where we're able to recognize the fact that you've done that, you've passed this test, I can see your certification. Those are the people that are going to be at the top of the pile when I'm assigning something for new construction, high net worth, green homes, whatever the case may be. So it's an investment in the future.
You told me previously that your mission, or the Class Valuation's mission, is to inspire confidence. So how would you say that philosophy shapes your approach to working with not only appraisers, but also lenders and ultimately homeowners?
The confidence factor is directly tied to consistency. People gain confidence in our ability to provide service when we're able to do that in a consistent manner, where you don't have peaks and valleys in service levels or quality or whatever the case may be. Confidence is also derived from our ability to adapt to changing market conditions. The fact that we have recognized, the direction that the market is going. Class were very much an early adopter in some of the digital products that we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years. And again, I think the fact that we have demonstrated that we're at the forefront of where the market is going in itself helps us to drive confidence and demonstrate that we are a leader.
I appreciate being able to have these kind of conversations with someone like you, because it's rare. Earlier, you mentioned that you were an appraiser, or still are an appraiser. I find that to be a kind of across in the housing industry, kind of across the board and the subsections that make up the industry, to have an executive that is actually that not only that has done the job, but is still actively, maybe not still doing it, but at least licensed and qualified to do it. So, your perspective on these issues is refreshing. So that in keeping with that and that philosophy, how do you see that your mission statement, your philosophy being applied and being mapped out into the possibilities of the future?
Yeah, again, we've talked about change. The industry is heading towards transformational change in the next few years as we retire the form filling approach to how we report our findings into the future UAD 3.6, which I won't go into too much detail about, but it is transformational in terms of what we do as appraisers. Again, Class wants to take a leading role in that transformation, and certainly enabling our panel and our partners to be ready for that. Again, encouraging them to be as educated as possible. and to, again, eliminate the fear as a result of being informed, I think is critically important. We'll be taking a leading role in that in the coming months as we get closer to that launch date.
Excellent. I wanted to ask you about something that again, this is kind of it's an industry-wide issue. Well, at least I know it is on the mortgage side with originators, and in earlier discussions with you, apparently with the appraisal or with appraisers. But I wasn't aware of some of the initiatives that you had mentioned earlier. So just like with loan originators, appraisals or appraisers is dealing with a workforce that is aging out of the industry with not a massive influx of younger appraisers just rushing to sign up.
Right.
And again, I see this in the mortgage industry and in other areas of in the housing industry. So, one, does this concern you, and to what extent? And is there anything being done to address or to solve this problem? Because it's a slight problem now, but if something's not done, it can grow to be a much larger one.
Absolutely. Look, we've experienced capacity issues on a couple of occasions in the last 5 or 6 years as a result of some of the refinance booms. Limited numbers of appraisers, I should say, drove significant extensions in turn times and cost and everything else. And that's certainly not something the market wants. The result of that and just technology in itself has driven a lot of the changes that we're seeing today. How do we mitigate having those types of situations where consumers are impacted to the extent that they were during some of those refinance booms? What I see in terms of the future, I believe, which is very bright, by the way, for appraisers, is an environment where we've moved away, as I mentioned earlier, from the kind of the one size fits all approach. This is what I do, into looking at a much more broad, eclectic array of products that are available to lenders that are based upon risk. And some of those may be relatively light in terms of the scope of work. Some of them may be just as thorough as what we do today. Appraisers are going to need to adapt to that mindset, that they are in a service industry, that they can provide the degree of service that's required based upon the actual profile of the risk of that particular transaction. And that's something that's different to a lot of appraisers. They've become used to just churning out the one type of report, and that needs to change. Are we going to see a rush to the exits as a result of the changes that I've kind of alluded to in the coming months? I don't believe we will. I think the forms providers and the GSEs are going to do a very good job and have done a very good job in providing a lot of information about what that future is going to look like. The problem is that, again, appraisers, as you mentioned earlier, are obviously relatively solitary. They don't interact with individuals a great deal. And often this news is slow in reaching them. I encourage any appraisers that are listening to this to be educated, get out there and understand what's happening in your industry in order to help, that transition for yourself. But there's also been a lot of other attempts to reduce the barriers to entry to become an appraiser over the past few years. The foundation and various other entities have been involved in creating alternatives to the traditional supervisor role, which has proven to be very, very difficult for trainees to actually obtain supervisory help going forward.
Why is that?
Well, again, appraisers are, individual contributors. Taking on a trainee can often be viewed as a burden. There's a significant amount of investment that needs to be made in both time and cost in order to train somebody. And there is, unfortunately, a mindset that I'm actually training my competition. Sure. Once you become an appraiser, you're then just going to be competing. I don't necessarily go along with that, but listen, that clearly is a mindset.
No, I've heard that same conversation in branches amongst loan officers and branch managers. Why would I hire another loan officer to come in and train? Especially if they're a producing branch manager, why would I hire a loan officer to come in?
No, absolutely. So look, again, there's been a tremendous amount of effort made in trying to reduce that restriction to new entrants. There's also been a tremendous amount of work in helping to diversify new entrants to our industry, which is something that we desperately need. Again, not to plug Class, but we have been, along with a number of our competitors, have been involved in the ADI project, I should say, which is the Appraisal Diversity Initiative that's being run by the Appraisal Institute, the Urban League, and Fannie Mae. And they've done a tremendous job in helping to get scholarships for individuals to gain entry into the industry, and placement with appraisers. And that's an ongoing exercise that we'll continue to support. So there's a multitude of things going on. Again, with regards to what's going to impact capacity constraints. I don't believe it's going to be a major issue as a result of the new products, but time will tell. But I feel very positive about the future.
And that ADI initiative that you were mentioning, is that something where is there any sort of outreach going on with where that program is going like out into the community or out in the workforce to recruit, or is that more, I guess, inbound where there's like a portal for people to apply for scholarships? How does that does that work?
Yeah, so the people apply for the scholarships, and once they are a part of the program, AMCs, lenders, and others that are sponsoring this program are then trying to provide opportunities for these scholar recipients to actually find employment, find a supervisor, and then go on to be a successful appraiser in the industry and add value and everything else that we would hope for. So this has been going on, don't quote me, 2 or 3 years. I've been involved in it for that time. I think it's a fabulous endeavor. It's not the only one. So there are other things out there that I'm probably not giving as much airtime to, but I've been directly involved in ADI. And it's been very, very successful.
That's excellent. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. So, and we touched a bit about this, a couple of here and there, a little bit over the past couple of minutes towards the end of our conversation. But looking forward into the future, what do you see? Not just for a class valuation, but for the appraisal industry at large over, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years. What are you forecasting?
Oh, well, as I've said now a few times, we are headed towards change that we haven't seen since probably the early 90s when licensing came into effect. Everything that we do to manufacture what it is we provide is about to change. So, that is a scale that none of us have seen before. I believe it's long overdue. We shouldn't be fearful of change. If you look at any other industry, they're going through exactly the same types of transitions, and we should do the same. So I think there's an astonishingly bright future where we as appraisers can leverage technology to the fullest, which was certainly something we haven't been doing up until recently. We can work so much more efficiently. I think there are opportunities for people to extend their careers by being able to provide a significant array of products from the desk. There's no need to go out into the field in many instances as an appraiser today. And I think people should be very open-minded about what those opportunities mean as opposed to being fearful that, our jobs are all being taken away. What I used to do is clearly not going to continue, and nor should it. And there are better ways for us to leverage our skills with technology and other means for us to deliver our products.
Do you think the most difficult aspect of the change of the next, say 3 to 5 years is just the acceptance that there is change?
Yeah, I think so. People are naturally fearful of what that means. I think that's probably the largest hurdle as an industry we need to get over. And to be fair to appraisers, since the pandemic, when we were considered an essential service, we've had our fair share of things that have changed dramatically. As I say, we went with nothing, and then all of a sudden it seems every day there's something different. I think a lot of people are a little burnt out with that. But I think, in looking at the big picture, the future is brighter than people, I think, profess when you read the blogs. And it's often, unfortunately, the noisy minority that will say that the sky is falling. The sky is not falling. This is a tremendous time to be in our industry. Embrace the change. Look at yourself in terms of how do you create a more competitive model for yourself through education, and go for it would be my feedback to any appraisers that are listening.
Andrew, it was a pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
I very much appreciate the time. Thank you very much.